All right. We're gonna do it. So a question that we get pretty regularly is, what is the best camera to rent if I'm shooting both photo and video? And that's a great question, because sometimes you'll be using a really sharp stills camera that falls apart if you're trying to get high resolution video, or you'll be shooting with an epic cinema camera that has 9 megapixels. That's an exaggeration, but some of them have like 12. My name's Cam, I'm a technician at Pro Photo Rental. We check in and test thousands of camera bodies. So we've comprised a list of our favorite hybrid cameras that we see go out all the time for you to check out. One list will be focused on budget, the other will be focused on performance, and we'll be looking at cameras that balance sharp stills with high video performance at a reasonable price point. We're gonna kick it off with the Canon R6 Mark III. The R6 Mark III has a 32.5 megapixel sensor. It can shoot photos up to high speeds of 40 frames a second in continuous shooting modes, which are both great features for any still camera to have, but the video specs that come with this thing are what really set it apart. You can shoot open gate at 7K. Shooting in 7K gives you a lot of flexibility for cropping and moving the image around, which is really handy for post-production work if you're filming content that's gonna be later posted in vertical formats. Additionally, the R6 III can shoot internal RAW at 7K up to 60 frames a second, which is bananas. So this camera packs so much punch into this little body and will be really useful for a wide variety of scenarios and give you a ton of flexibility in post-production to do a ton of things. Moving right along, we have the Nikon Z6 Mark III, another powerhouse of a camera. It's got a 24.5 megapixel sensor, continuous burst shooting up to 20 frames a second, but the specs in the video side, again, are just completely stacked on this guy. You can do 6K up to 60 frames a second with their internal and RAW, 6K 30 frames a second using ProRes RAW. This camera is kind of more leaning towards the video performance side of things, but the ability to shoot those high frame rates and have that kind of processing power with excellent autofocus capabilities, still really fast burst shooting, but still be able to capture 6K up to 60 frames a second. I would recommend to any Nikon shooters looking for the best of both worlds. Now for my fellow Sony people, it's kind of tricky picking the right Sony camera, because with Sony cameras, finding the right balance of video and photo performance I can find kind of tricky. I think Sony, more than any other brand, if it excels in one thing, it drops off in the other. With the Sony A7V, I think that it's just the perfect mix. So it's got a 33 megapixel sensor, again, sharp for any stills camera. It can shoot up to 30 frames a second, which is really good. You can also shoot video 4K, 10-bit up to 60 frames a second, and you have those color profiles of S-Log3 or S-Cinetone, whichever one is your preference. But what sets it apart from something like the A7IV or the FX2, when you shoot at 60 frames a second, there's no crop that happens. So you're maintaining that full frame image at those higher frame rates. And if you're shooting S-Log3, you're getting that delicious Sony dual base ISO of 800 and 4000, which to me makes it the winner here. So that's it for our list of cameras that are more focused on being budget friendly for you. Now let's look at some of the higher performance cameras. To kick it off, I mean, no question, the R5 Mark II. It's a phenomenal camera for most shooting scenarios. You're getting a 45 megapixel sensor, burst shooting up to 30 frames a second, but the video, 8K, RAW, 60 frames a second, internally. That's crazy. If you wanted to shoot at a flat profile, it also comes with a C-Log2 or 3, but also Canon's basic color profiles are just so good right out of camera. So if you're a Canon shooter looking to integrate more video or photo into either of your workflows, I highly recommend renting and checking out the R5 Mark II. It lives up to the legend that it is. Moving right along, for you Nikon shooters out there, gonna give a shout out to the Nikon Z8. Z8! It's got a 45.7 megapixel sensor. In burst modes, it'll shoot up to 20 frames a second. And again, 8K, 60 frames a second. Internal RAW. 4K, 60 frames a second. ProRes RAW. It can also shoot 10-bit 4K up to 120 frames a second for those really buttery slow motion moments that you might need. If you haven't used any of Nikon's mirrorless cameras, the autofocus response time is great. The lenses are so sharp. It's really lightweight, so it does well to mount to a gimbal. And I don't think Nikon gets enough credit for their color science. Nikon is fantastic, so check it out if you're so inclined. And last but certainly not least, again, for all my fellow Sony people, we got the Sony A7R5. This camera has the highest megapixel count of any of the cameras that we've mentioned, with 61 megapixels. So for taking stills, you'll be able to crop and still make big prints of whatever you're shooting, retaining a high level of detail and sharpness. The trade-off is that in terms of burst mode and high-speed shooting, you can only shoot up to 10 frames a second. So weigh with that what you will. In the video space of things, it can shoot up to 8K, 10-bit, up to 24 frames a second. It can shoot 16-bit RAW, but you need an external recorder and you're limited to shooting only up to 4K. That's the limitation of the cameras. It can't do it internally. But still, phenomenal video specs for that kind of picture resolution. You're also maintaining those same color profiles that I mentioned, the S-Cinetone, the S-Log3, and then if you really do need those higher frame rates, it'll do 4K up to 120 frames a second with no crop. Still regarded as one of the most popular hybrid cameras, and I just can't recommend it enough for hybrid shooters. But that's it for this video. If there's any cameras that I didn't mention that you think deserve a shout out, please let us know in the comments. If there's any cameras that you're curious about that we didn't cover today but are on our website, check them out. If you have any questions, please give us a call here at the shop. You can also email us at service@prophotorental.com. Thanks for hanging out with us today.